and you can see me, and I can see the chat, and it all seems to be working fine. Oh dear. Right, I'm on here 3 minutes early just so that you can find me. Do you let me know in the chat where you are? Quinn's back. Yes. Kaz is back. Oh dear. I'll tell you what happened in a minute when everyone's here. Yarn Princess, hello. Chantal, hi. Oh, it's so lovely you could see. You can be here because obviously you're in Canada and you can't usually be here. Alaya, fabulous. Good. Yes. Oh, 10 minutes, 20 minutes late. What does that matter? I had scheduled it to be using streaming software rather than the webcam. So it completely, blinded me. I had no idea what I was doing. I do sometimes think I should be using streaming software. I can do a lot more fancy stuff with it. But at the moment, I think you and I are quite happy with this. Okay, Marilyn is in San Francisco, Bay Area. Cool. I've got a friend in the Bay Area. Oh, lovely. I hope you didn't get to snowed under, so to speak, with the fires last year. Oh dear, that was dreadful, wasn't it? Hey Joe, you've made it as well. Young Princess is in America. Catherine's in Dallas, in Texas. Oh, fabulous. Yes, we're reaching different places where we wouldn't usually reach. Brilliant. And Kaz is in North Yorkshire and Sheffield, South Yorkshire and Sheffield. Cool. I don't usually do it this time of day. Nick will be home in less than an hour. If I do it earlier, then it's kind of encroaching on my nap time. And then it encroaches on my lunch. So I do prefer, it's easier for me to do it in the morning. But yeah, occasionally in the afternoon, way. Saskatchewan, Canada, fabulous. We're all over the place. And I'm sure some of you are in the UK as well. Great. So this week, it is week 3 and it's decision time. I know a lot of you have already been making decisions. I am just going to close the window because I've got birds singing and it's so loud at the moment. It's nice, but it's actually distracting me. And as you can see, where's my yarn gone? I'm making decisions at the moment as well. It does sound beautiful, yes. So this has moved out. If you are following me on YouTube, then you Instagram, then you would have seen this. I should have been sharing all of this on the YouTube stories as well. But that storage unit is going. I've been thinking about this for a while now, working out how we could store the yarn better. The biggest problem with that IKEA unit was there was no back to it. I didn't like the fact that it could be getting dusty without me recognizing that it was getting dusty. Everything in the back of those shelves were actually wrapped in plastic. Because of that, otherwise I would have had it open, and it's much better for the yarn to have it open. And then you can move it around as well. And the other thing I didn't like about that was that it was quite restrictive. It's quite a big unit, but you can't really put stuff around it because it's such a strange shape. So this is brilliant. It's the best project. I am really looking forward to that. It's new furniture is arriving this Friday. And it was quite quick to get rid of that. I put it on Facebook yesterday evening, and within an hour I had 3 people wanting it. So I love that. They're perfect for craft rooms, for children's toys, that sort of thing. So there you go. Right. I must admit, I look kind of blank at the moment. There's nothing behind me but a door and a light switch. Okay, right. Where are we? Joe is failing. Bought more yarn this weekend. What are you doing? Honestly, you do knit regularly. Like, you get through your yarn. So I'm not surprised that you have to buy more yarn. And what I would say is if you're thinking, I'm not using my stash, then buy yarn for every 2 or 3 items and then use your stash in between. It really is just a good way to do it. Say if you knit something with new yarn, I'm going to knit something with the yarn that's in my stash. Um, it can really help just move it along. Um, and it will help you realize what you keep setting aside. Oh, I'll knit with that another day. I'll knit with that another time. That'll be useful at some point. And then you'll get to a point where you say, I've been dismissing that for 6 months now. Why don't I just move it out of my range of view and give it to someone who will use it? It's a good way to declutter, is to see your stash regularly. Um, yeah, Chantal is in Ontario. Joe's got the new yarn. A project for her niece, matches the dress. Her mum just sewed it. Well, that is totally understandable. I'd say you're allowed to do that. Totally understandable. Quinn's yarn stash is pretty okay. Cool. Younger knitter, does that mean you're a newer knitter? Can't go shopping. Yes, maybe that's a good thing. Yes, yes. Yeah, definitely. I get that. Um, I used to basically use my mum's yarn when I was younger, and we'd kind of share the stash too. So it wasn't a case of me going out and buying my own. It was a case of we're getting hold of it and using it together. So it felt easier in that era because it wasn't my responsibility to keep it moving. It was hers, definitely. Kaz is looking for a new shower and a garden lawnmower. Ooh, does that mean you're using less yarn because you're saving up for them? You're buying less yarn. That's something that actually could be really helpful if you're moving through your yarn stash. You could say, oh, I really want to buy that yarn. Do I really want to buy that? Do I need that yarn? Will I use it? And if those questions do come up, you're kind of like going, I'm not really sure I'll use it. Put the money aside for something that you will use. So I was doing that all last spring when I was saving up for my iPhone with my Harry Potter cover there. So if I was thinking, oh, I'll get that because I need it, and I thought, actually, you don't. I put it aside because this has been so helpful for filming, for all sorts. It's really been a great investment. So if you're doing that kind of thing, then getting through your yarn stash and saying, I will use that for a while, every 2 or 3 projects instead of buying for every project, then the budgeting part of it can really be helpful. Joe says I'm not allowed. Not what my husband said, though. You're allowed. You're allowed. You're in charge. You're the one with the knitting needles. Okay, so this week's declutter is making decisions. And just to give you a few ideas on what kind of decisions you might be making, you say, oh, I could knit with that. But just stop yourself and think, is the colour right? This is what I mentioned in the email this week. There's so many questions you could ask yourself. Will I knit with it? Well, maybe you will. But is it also something that you want to knit with? And it's going to give you pleasure when you knit with it. If it's the right colour, if the fibre seems right, have you knitted a sample and thought, actually, this is really itchy, even though I like the colour and everything else seems good, then I won't knit with it. Think about the colour as in, it's a gorgeous colour. It's a beautiful colour. I'd love to knit with that. But it's actually a really dull, musty, horrid grey. And you think, I'm not going to want to come home and knit with that when it's grey and dull and cold and wet outside. I want to come home and see beautiful colours and joy and absolute rainbows on my needles. You don't want to come home and knit with grey. So really think about that as well. Where is it coming from? It's a gorgeous colour. I can imagine that on a catwalk, but does that mean that you'd knit with it? And will it match the yarns that you already wear? Will it match the yarns that the colours that you already wear that are in your wardrobe? I hardly ever wear pink, but I've got this one cardigan. And when I got this one cardigan, I got a pair of linen trousers in a very similar colour, in a salmon pink. And for like 3 summers, I was wearing them together, and now I just have the cardigan left, and I don't have the trousers anymore. But it just is a very rare occasion when I will wear this kind of colour. I've got the lipstick to match. But think about that too. Are you going to want to wear the colour? Are you gonna wear a really bright, colourful, scarf in the summer? Possibly not, because you won't need it. But would you wear that? Would it match your coat if you were wearing it in the winter? Would it match the big, gorgeous, colourful winter jumper that you wear out in the winter? Think about that. Exactly, Quinn. Pretty colours give us joy when we're knitting, and multicoloured yarns gives us joy. Or the excitement of getting to the next stripe, that kind of thing. So as you go through your stash, really think about the colours. Why are they there? Why did you buy them in the first place? Was it because of catwalk kind of inspiration? Or was it, yes, I will really knit with that because of these various reasons? So do you like how the yarn feels? Are you going to knit with it? I knitted, and I probably will tell you, remind you of all this story when I was, when we talk about works in progress in a couple of weeks' time. But I was knitting a jumper for Nick a few years ago, a good few years ago now. So it was the second jumper that I knitted him. Gorgeous pattern, shawl collar. I thought, this is going to be brilliant. I'm actually going to get the subscribed yarn. Yes. I'm not going to substitute. I'm really going to get the yarn that it says to use in this pattern so that nothing goes wrong. We found it, and we had to drive like 20 minutes away to get it in the shop. And I said, right, you're coming with me, and you're going to stand there and help me choose the colour. So we went through all the different options, chose the colour. Fabulous. Have we got enough yarn? Yes, we have. Right, let's go. I started knitting it, kind of thinking, this is okay. And I really wasn't aware of why I kept putting it down. I just kept thinking, oh, I'll knit something else. I'll do a baby beanie this weekend. I'll knit a pair of mittens for my sister for Christmas. Just kept pushing it down and not going back to it. And it ended up in a bag in here, actually, because this is where I got my studio and my office now, but it just used to be my craftish kind of room. And I got to a point where I was tidying up my yarn, and I found it, and I said, why did I put this down? This yarn is so, so itchy. I hate it. I don't ever want to knit with it ever again. And I got to a point, and I still had 4 balls of this left, and this is like 200-gram balls. And I thought, I am never knitting with this again. And that is something that I never finished. Nick didn't have his jumper because the yarn just wasn't suitable for knitting with for me. I do have extremely sensitive skin. I can wear wool. Usually I need a long sleeve t-shirt underneath it or something, or a shirt. But, you know, I can get to a point where my fingers are going, no, that's enough, Hannah. That's enough. Do you feel that too? And you're going to go through your colour, go, oh, it's a beautiful colour. Oh, I love knitting that weight. That fibre looks fabulous. But actually, is it spun in a particular way? Or is it a particular quality that makes it absolutely dreadful for you to knit with? So many loops and bobbles on it that you keep making mistakes. Is it a cotton that's just pulling apart and it's shredding as you knit with it? Then you can say, right, this isn't for me. Someone else could even use it for macrame instead of knitting, and they might find that it's better. So just think, are there things about it that will say, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way before. Think about it like that. And the other thing is, how much is there? How much yarn do you have? If you've got 10 balls of something that you know you would only ever use like 50 grams at a time, do you need all of that? Do you need it all? Or have you got 2 balls of it, but you really only ever knit with that kind of yarn and that kind of fibre when you're knitting large items? Just consider that too. It can be something that could really put you off carrying on and continuing to knit if this yarn is sitting there and you're never going to knit with it. You pull it out start knitting. This is no good. I haven't got enough, or I've got too little. So yeah, I haven't got enough, or there's far too much, and I'm never going to knit through it. So think about that too. And it is a great time. If you start making decisions, then just as Marie Kondo says, once you're used to making decisions, then you can make more decisions. And it feels easier to make more decisions. The other tip I will give you about this is that it's easy to make decisions when you get up in the morning. The more decisions you have to make during the day, the harder it gets. And this is why motivation, right? Let's go to the gym first thing in the morning. Let's have a healthy breakfast. We've got to get to work at 9 o'clock. All of those things are actually quite easy to do because it's first thing in the morning. You've got that energy, you've got that motivation as you get up. But it can be tougher as the day goes on to make more of these decisions. So if, like me, you have a nap in the afternoon, then that could also be a good time to get decision making happening. I do well if I make decisions, if I do things at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Obviously, it didn't work very well this afternoon. But take gremlins aside, it can work really well. Then what you can do is have your decision making in the morning, after lunch, nap, and there you go, you can make more decisions in the afternoon. But if you're someone who's up all day and you're making decisions constantly, oh my goodness, what am I eating for lunch? When have I got to get the children after school? We've got to go shopping, I've got to do some errands, blah, 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 blah. Then all of a sudden your decision making brain is going, no, I can't do any more. Wait until tomorrow, please. So that's why we meal plan. Because by the end of the day, you go, I can't imagine what I'm going to eat. No way. I'm going to make it easy and order a pizza. So we make decision at the beginning of the day. Do that. Just set aside some time, even if it's this weekend. Or before you even go to work, get up early. And instead of once you've done your meditation or something, then you say, right, I'll do 15 minutes of yarn decisions. And it will feel a lot easier. And then you kind of say, don't go back on those decisions. You've made them when you're in the good frame of mind for making decisions. Ah, dear. Here we go. Quinn, I just buy yarn if it's pretty, soft, and affordable. If you're going to knit with it, that sounds cool. Chantal, I have worked really hard at this declutter project all month. I gave yarn to 4 different charity knitting groups. Oh, cool. I remembered the one that I was talking about last week, and that is Knit for Peace. That's the one in the UK. So if you want to go and look at those, they are on Instagram, Facebook. They've obviously got a website as well. And like I said, they will always tell you which yarn they want every month, which items they want every month, and which items they don't need every month. So if you feel like knitting for charity, if you want to give stuff for charity, then go and have a look at the Knit for Peace charity in the UK. They're in London, and they'll even help you with collections and such like. Chantal, I also gave a lot of yarn to an older lady that makes Afghans of victims of spousal abuse. Brilliant. That's fabulous. It's going to a place where it will be very much appreciated. Okay. This is where we talk about where it goes next. Because you may have bags of oddments, and this is where, what do you call them? The little squares, the snuggle, what am I thinking? The sensory squares that really appreciated for children and for older people in care homes. Just gives them something to handle that just keeps their minds from being restless. That is ideal for oddments of yarn. So if you know someone who makes that kind of thing, then that's a great place for them. We always used to use small pieces, and we didn't really care what thickness it was. We just knit with it, and it was ideal for Christmas decorations. If you're aware of my Christmas bulbul, the round ornament, spherical ornament that I've knitted with 2 needles instead of a circular needle, that's on here on my channel, and That is what I say. Knit it with any yarn you have. Just use the appropriate needles. Then you'll have this real mixture of sizes, and that can really, really work. It can make a real difference to your yarn stash. Covered a tree with knitted baubles. How fabulous! And I bet the local church might even want some, or I know in our local town we've only got, what, 7,000 people here, but it's a really tight-knit high street, just coming off of a little roundabout. And all of the shops around there do a Christmas game every year. They decorate the windows, and the kids have to go around and find something interesting in each window. And that kind of thing, you can bet a local shop would want baubles or something for that kind of decoration. So just be imaginative. How many little things could you knit with the small oddments or give to someone else to knit? But the other thing we could use scraps for, leftovers for, is knitting up stripy scarves, knitting squares for blankets. You can crochet squares for blankets. Granny square blankets are so popular. So are stripy blankets. They are so popular too. Temperature blankets, we've talked about them before. Mood blankets, where the different stripe represents different moods or different temperatures of the day. So there's so many things you can do with small amounts of yarn, but be honest with yourself. Are you actually going to get round to knitting those things? Are you going to get round to creating all of those little crocheted squares that you want for a blanket? Are you going to have the patience? Or is it going to sit there for years and years and years and decades? I knew when I got the yarn to make myself a blanket. If I bought it new, I knew I would have a much better chance of actually getting it done. And I said to myself, I don't mind how long it takes. I'm happy to have it sat here. And that gave me the resolve to say, that's okay. I can knit a square, I can pick up something else and knit that. I can knit a square, I can pick up something and knit that. And then for a month, I might knit 6 squares altogether. And then I'd knit something else. And it took me 3 winters, 2.5 winters. So I'd knit them in the summer as well. I think I started around November or December, and I finished about the same time, 2 or 3 winters later. And I didn't mind. I was happy, but I knew I'd finish. I wasn't someone who would just say, "Oh, I haven't got there yet, so I'll give up." I'm a finisher. Um, and again, we'll talk about this with the works in progress. But there are starters and finishers in this world. Do you recognize that you're a starter? That you start so many projects, you've got this great intention, but it never really happens. So with the leftover yarn, are you going to sit there and go, "Oh wow, I could create an amazing blanket with it. Let me sort it all out. Let's get it organized." And then you never start it. Or do you start it and it never gets finished? With me, it takes longer to get started, but I know I will finish it. If I've set myself that target, I will get going and I will do it and I will finish it at some point. I don't mind how long it takes. I know I will get it finished. This is why probably this business has worked for me, because I've set myself targets, but I don't mind if I have to let them lag a bit. And I don't mind if someone else comes along and says, "Well, why don't you give yourself that target?" Because I say, "No, I've given myself this target." It's finishing and starting it is my problem. I can have a problem with that. Oh, do I really believe in this? If I believe in this, if I really, really believe in this, then that means if I start it, then I'll have to finish it. So I have to really motivate myself to say, this really is what I want. This really is what I want. And is that the case with you and your leftover yarn? Think about that too. Is your leftover blanket that, got this big bag of leftover yarn, I'm going to make a blanket with it. Is it really going to get started? And is it really going to get finished? So someone else may want it. Charity shops may want it. Charities may want it, so they can give it to people who will crochet squares for them for blankets, that kind of thing. Quinn, my friend and I are doing a pillow made of squares. Cool. I'm knitting stripes and colourwork squares, and she's crocheting yellow and white ones. Brilliant. That's cool. That's that's lovely. I love that you can knit things with a friend. That's the beauty of knitting squares and such like. It can make a big difference. And then again, you've got someone to motivate you to keep going. That's like us on YouTube, isn't it? Here in the membership, and obviously here when we're doing lives as well. It's how you doing? How's it going? The doctor. Which one are you? Hey Hannah, I made my first ever seed stitch swatch today. Thanks a lot for your videos. I learned so much. Oh, cool. That's exciting. Seed stitch. Yes. In the UK, we call that moss stitch. No problem. But just in case you're confused about what seed stitch is, that's moss stitch. I'm using double moss stitch at the moment, which is just as exciting and slightly more confusing as well when you get it wrong. Hang on a minute, I've done 3 rows of that instead of 2 rows, and oh goodness me. I will be doing why did I go wrong in my moss stitch kind of videos, because I've had more and more people ask me about that as the years have gone by. So don't panic if you start making mistakes with your moss stitch. I will have a couple of videos to help you with that. So the one thing I will say, and this is a kind of a what's it called? A bibliography. I don't mean that. This is a note at the bottom of the page. Only give it to a fellow knitter. I mean, it's not your decision on whether they say yes or no, is it? But if you know so well that this person is just going to end up with the yarn stash sat in their spare room, then probably don't even offer it to them in the first place. You know, there are more people out there who will use it. And just like with the furniture at the back here, I offered it where I knew people would want it, and it was snapped up very quickly. So if you're in a yarn stash or in a charity knitting Facebook group or something, and you want to offer that yarn up, then they are going to use it. But if you're just offering it to a neighbour because you know they knit, then they may say, oh, I don't really knit anymore, or something like that, but they just take it and they're scared to tell you, then offer it to people who will use it. That's something. Now, when it comes to selling, let's talk about that, shall we? What do we do? What do we do? Well, there are lots of options. When I did this first time with all of you guys, and I tell you, it changed the way I look at my yarn when I did that the first time. I really went through my yarn very, very well, and I ended up with 11 lots of yarn, 11 pieces of yarn. You know, there was stuff that I had to give to charity shop because there were only a couple, 1 or 2 balls of it, and it was really cheap yarn, and I knew that nobody would want it. I selected good quality yarn, full balls of yarn, or enough of a ball that I could weigh it and say, there's 35 grams here. Out of a 50-gram ball, you definitely want to use that. And I put them together in lots, and I put them on eBay. And the one thing I think that made a difference is that I was sharing them all in one go. So in the description, I had the full details, everything that was on the ball band. Not only that, in every description in my eBay little shop, it was, do go and look at the rest of my listings. I'm sharing all of my yarn this week. Boom. And yes, guess what? Lots of people went on there and looked at all the other stuff as well. And there were at least 3 people. I sold everything, and that really shocked me. Never have I put stuff on eBay all at once and it's all gone. But this time, there were, I think it was 11 lots. 11 lots of yarn, and they all went. And I'm pretty sure at least 3 of the people who bought stuff bought more than 1 lot. So that made a big difference. Doing it all at once, having great descriptions, every single piece of detail that could possibly be on the ball band, I put in the description, including the yarn colour and the dye lots. And then I said, if you want more, then go and have a look at my other listings, because I've got a lot of stuff there. So I closed it all on Sunday evening, which is a great time for finishing stuff on eBay. and it all sold for decent prices. It was definitely worth it. It was worth it enough for me to say, yeah, if I ever have this kind of thing happen, and I may do it again. But I've never had that kind of situation come up again, because doing that first yarn declutter made me change the way I keep track of my yarn. So more often than not, I'll be going through it regularly and only buying when I really want it. And I'm knitting so much more for, she says, pointing at the bookcase without any yarn in it that isn't there anymore. Um, I'm knitting for the business now, so I'm not buying as much personal yarn as I might do otherwise. If I'm buying personal yarn, then in my mind it's kind of right, I'm going to knit with this and test it to see if I want to use it for the business. So there's a lot of stuff that, you know, eBay is a good place, but I haven't needed to do it again. So that feels good. And I think if you're willing to take the time, it must have taken me a good few hours to put everything on there, because there had to be photos. I had to weigh some of the leftover balls that were, like 35 grams, like I said. I had to make sure I could package it well. I also had to get all of the descriptions up there, and make it all live. And that made a difference. So, yeah, do it well, and you could get a decent reward. And guess what? You get money out of it, and you can buy new yarn with it. Look at all of that stash gone. You could then go and buy yarn that you really will use, or for a project that you've had on your mind for a while and you just haven't had the yarn to do it. So think about that too. Okay, so offer it to neighbours if they have children. Just a few ideas. They could start French knitting, finger knitting. They could use it for collage and weaving. For example, another idea is to give it to your local brownie pack, your Cub Scouts. They can do finger knitting or even a knitting badge. A school. I gave a load of real scraps to the local nursery, which is just up the road here. And they were so thankful for it, because they would have chopped up yarn and stick it on a collage. They don't care. They just want stuff that the children can craft with, and then it goes home. So yeah, they're perfectly happy to have that kind of thing. Ask. If you're kind of thinking, oh, that should really go in the bin, then ask if someone else will want it. The other place you could try, again, I would suggest you do all of the lots all at once, is Facebook Marketplace. Or I don't know whether anyone uses this anymore. I'm not particularly au fait with Ravelry, other than putting a few patterns up there. Will the Ravelry stash meisters be happy with it? I've had some stash on there for years, and I've had quite a lot of a particular yarn, and I've dived into it regularly because I know that I use it whenever I need baby patterns to knit. I even need yarn for baby patterns. So it's just a personal yarn that I knit for my friends and for family and such like. So I've had that yarn on there for a good few years. And while I've been using bits of it, I actually had someone in the last few months contact me from Ravelry and say, have you still got any of this? Because I really need that colour and that colour. Tell me what the dye lot is and it might be what I need. Yeah, and she had 3 balls and I sold it to her. I just sent her a PayPal request. And it was that simple. So even if you're thinking, I will use it, there's a lot of it, and if you use the forums a lot, then you could well sell it a lot more quickly than I did. So think about it too. We talked about this last week, about the emotions that you find is attached. Oh, actually, let's talk about something else. Selling it at the moment, it's not easy. We don't have car boot sales. We don't have, really can't do garage sales. I know some yarn shops, if you bought yarn from them in the first place, they will take it back if it's still in good condition, you haven't used any of it, and they will put it in a bag and sell it for you. There's a shop quite near us that used to do that. Obviously, that isn't an option anymore, but get creative and do it in a way that works for now. And if you're sitting there thinking, oh, the car boot sales could be up and running, we could do a garage sale in a few months' time. Do you really want to store it? It's just a way of saying, I won't declutter it at the moment. I hate to say it, but it really is. So you could make money with it. You can donate it. There's so many ways. You can let this yarn move and find its real purpose, like we mentioned before. It's nice to feel that while you get hold of yarn, just give it a purpose of its own. Let it become something, like Toy Story. Their duty was to be played with. That's what they were there for. Yarn is there to be knitted or crocheted or used in some way, creative way. So let's give it that, shall we? So Marie Kondo talks about letting go of the things that don't have the emotion first, such as kitchen utensils. Crafting is a more difficult thing. We can have emotions attached to it because there's so much time and beauty and joy that we get out of sitting there and crafting. Some people who absolutely love and adore cooking will have a great deal of attachment to kitchen utensils, but I would imagine it's very few people who will be so attached to a wooden spoon or a spatula that they won't want to get rid of it for emotional reasons. But I think yarn and um, other kind of crafting materials, you can get attached to them. It's when you bought it, why you bought it, what it was intended for. Did you use money that someone gave you as a gift? All that kind of stuff. So just be aware of that. How does it feel now? Not how does it feel when you bought it? Because all these decisions, like I say, they could be tough if you're sitting there feeling, oh, I'm so emotionally attached to this. I can't let it go. I can't do this. And so, yeah, just feel that love and know that yarn has purpose and you're helping it have its purpose. If you won't use it, then someone else will. Right. You will have another email on Saturday if you are signed up. If you're not signed up, then you can, and you will still get your emails. Let me do this now. That is the YArn Declutter. Sign up, get your weekly email. It's not a weekly email at the moment. It is, sorry, what I mean is you won't get the first emails now. You'll get the 4th week's email on Saturday. If you want the past emails, then go and click on this button, click on this link, and you will get everything. You will get the first week, second week, and this 3rd week. You'll also get all of the videos. These videos, now they're on YouTube, they will have adverts on them. If you want them without adverts, then you can go and watch them there as well. The other thing you can do through this link is get a couple of bonuses. Because at the end of this YArn Declutter, I could carry on teaching about decluttering and sorting out and organising stuff for a very long time. But there's more stuff that I added when we first did this a few years ago. And I thought, there's far too much for 4 weeks. So anything you feel that you want to declutter afterwards, we will talk about that there. And you'll have those bonuses afterwards. Okay. Hi, Angela. Working on a scarf by knitting it. How are you doing today? I'm fine. Thanks, Angela. Nice to see you here. Knitting a scarf. And Kaz is knitting a cozy for a Costa Starbucks mug. My sister went out and got a Costa this weekend, and it was 50p because they were opening up again. I thought, wow, that sounds good. Joe is making a cable blanket with a moss border. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, the moss border and moss stitch is kind of tough. And getting the right row next can be kind of tough. So it's learning what the knit stitch looks like and what the purl stitch looks like. And as you knit more, you will get used to that. So just be aware, as you're knitting, just sit down with no distractions. No TV, no noise, close the door so that nobody disturbs you, and look at your knitting. Where's the yarn going as you make a knit stitch? Where is it when you do a purl stitch? And what does the stitch look like once you've knitted it or purled it? Just take a look at those things and you can learn a lot, and you could actually really understand a lot better what a purl stitch looks like and what a knit stitch looks like. So just recognize those little things. What is it that a knit stitch looks like and a purl stitch looks like? And how can you then tell what comes next as you start a row? And that's really, really helpful when you're doing moss stitch. Really, really helpful when you're doing moss stitch. Yarn Princess is in the middle of knitting a sweater with leftover yarn. Fabulous. Yeah, and if all the colours go together, then brilliant. This is interesting. It's Vogue knit. I'm not sure it's Vogue knitting. I think it's Vogue. Don't know. It might be Vogue magazine. It might not be Vogue knitting, but they were on a catwalk recently because it's autumn winter catwalks at the moment. And they were sharing a stripy jumper, and it looked so much like the jumpers that someone I follow on YouTube, Instagram, has been knitting for 3 years. Really disappointing, actually. It looked like an straight down the line copy. So I don't know. It seems a shame, but stripy sweaters are popular, and it's just the way that she makes the stripes that look fabulous. And yeah, I mean, you can come up with a very similar idea yourself, but it looks very, very much like a copy. Someone that big copying someone so small, not pleased. Joe says, yes, I am funny. 5 children in a 2-bedroom flat. There's no quiet, absolutely no distractions. Yeah. When they go out to the park and you've just got the baby and she's having a nap, then maybe that would work. Or they're all in bed at 9 o'clock in the evening. You never know, that might happen. 8 o'clock maybe, they're all in bed. Does that happen? Just take a look as you're knitting. You'll notice it. I know, because you knit so much, Joe, that it just, even a 90 seconds to let you sit there and go, I've just noticed something. The knit stitch looks like that and the purl stitch looks like that. There you go. So if you've got the worksheet from this week, I've also put disposal good practices on here. So just be aware of your recycling options near here. The recycling opportunities differ from location to location. So I don't want to say something that's blanket, because I mean, even in different counties and different parts of the country here, different city councils, then you'll have different rules. So there's no blanket statement. What I did actually with a lot of my photo samples from when I was knitting and creating patterns first, I've actually put them in bags and they went round to the charity bin, which collects clothes. And of course, that's clothes, that's hand knitted clothes. So I had lots of samples that really needed to get on and have a new journey, actually people wearing them. So they all went round to there. And you can bet there will be charity shops that will take yarn. It's best to give them full balls, or to actually make up a full bag and say, this is a particular yarn and there are 272 grams or something, and it will make it a lot easier for them. And like I said, charities will accept stuff because they're knitting small items and they want to knit small items. So as you're decluttering, just be aware of that. put the feelers out and see who would take it and how they would collect it, or where you take it. Joe says, yes, yeah. Autistic son does not sleep, but he will watch Octonauts. Yeah, that can be a great time for you to sit there and figure out what's knitting. Yeah, yeah, it is tough. Oh dear, but you're getting through it. I know you are, and knitting helps so much. Knitting helps so much with that kind of thing. Um, and sometimes I don't think we realise how much joy and me time and priority we're giving ourselves by knitting. It's not just so we get a finished item at the end of it. It's actually the process, the journey that gives us a lot in return too. So congratulations, Joe, for giving yourself that time and letting yourself be important and letting yourself be prioritized at times as well. Right. Unless you have any questions, do stick any questions in there. I will be back on Friday, not for a live, but for the week's video. This week's video is more about gauge swatching, and the gauge swatch video this week is, I'm sharing, I just had to think about that. I'm sharing lots of the gauge swatches that I've had to knit before I start creating patterns. I have to get used to a yarn. I have to think about the different ways I'm going to create stitch patterns in particular ways. So I'm sharing some of that with you. And I hope you enjoy that. It's just a sneak peek behind the scenes about how much I have to do before I create a pattern. And also it just gives you an idea on how you could start knitting up the yarns that you've got left over to see whether it would work for particular patterns for you. You may have knitting patterns sat there and you think, cool, I really want to knit that up, but would it work with a particular yarn? Well, it wouldn't take long for you to just knit up a little square, and you'll know whether or not it would work pretty quickly. So that's what's coming up on Friday. And then we are indeed back next Tuesday. We'll be back. We will. I'm not sure how that came out like that. I will be back next Tuesday with the last Yarn Declutter live. But then we're also doing a live on the Friday as well. I've got a whole presentation for you, and I love this one because it really, really gets you in the mindset of works in progress. We're doing a big full discussion on works in progress at the end of next week. So there you go. Oh my goodness, Joe, that is a big question. Can you teach us all sometime how to up and downsize existing patterns, please? That is probably a question for people who create patterns for clothing in a different way than I do. It's a big old job. My suggestion is to go and find a different pattern. Seriously, it's possible. The thing is, when you have, say, a jumper pattern and you want to say you've got the pattern for a 3-year-old and you want to upsize it for a 5-year-old, you need more stitches, you need longer length in the body, you need longer length on the sleeves, you need a larger neck size. The other option is to upsize your needles and your yarn. So would it work? Quite possibly with a DK yarn, but use a Aran instead. That is an option, but just remember to create a larger body and create longer sleeves. But otherwise, you could quite possibly get away with it. And there are knitters out there, pattern makers out there who will do that for you. So if you've got a pattern you like, there are actually, I mean, this is a technical stuff. This is mathematical spreadsheets beyond belief. That's how you make a knitting pattern for multiple sizes. You get someone who's got all of that know-how and all of that experience to do this for you. So you could have a pattern for a 3-year-old and they'll make it every single size all the way up to a 16-year-old if that's what you want. But just be aware that that's out there if you would want to look for it. I don't have the links and I don't have the connections right now to do that, simply because I don't create that kind of pattern for myself or for the business at the moment. I prefer making stuff that anyone can knit. So it's a cowl, it's a scarf, it's a hat, maybe in 3 sizes. So just, um, it's an option to go and find people who will do that for you. And I know there are books out there as well that will teach you how to do this yourself. So if you feel like learning, then seriously, someone with the knowledge and better experience with that kind of knitting will teach it much better than I will. So um, go and have a look on Amazon for the books. Go and have a look on Google for people who will do it for you. And yeah, there's no reason why it can't happen. But in my opinion, in my lazy opinion, there's what's the word? Oh, no, I can't recommend books because I haven't got. It's not difficult to find. Go and Google it, Joe. The word is chillpreneur. That's what I'm looking for in my mind. I've got the book here. Here we go. Chillpreneur. And another one of my favorite books, I can't see it, Essentialism. It's about not cutting corners or being lazy. It's about saying, actually, where are my skills? Which skills do I want to use? And if I don't have those skills, can I outsource it? Or can I find not cheat, but find an easy way around it? And an easy way around it is to say, I'll go and find a different pattern. An easy way around it is to outsource it and say, can you do that for me? Someone who's got the knowledge and the expertise. So I don't have that expertise, but there are people out there who do. Knitting mocky mocky. I've never heard of that. Is that changing? Oh, okay. That's amigurumi. That's not upsizing and downsizing patterns. Okay. Yeah. I could recommend lots of knitting books, but not one for upsizing and downsizing patterns. I was actually looking at some recently, and I realized that that would be a whole lot of learning, and actually I want to focus on other things. So yeah. So okay, right. I'm going to say goodbye. Nick, I think I just told him at the door. So it's really nice. He finishes at 4:30 every day now, so he's home by 5, and finishes even earlier on a Friday. Yay! I like that. I will see you all next week, and I'll see you all on Friday with a pre-recorded video. Yeah. Leon Princess says, "Is it wrong to be more of an experienced knitter in what I know about the skill, but I like to knit easier things?" No, not at all. No, no, not at all. You see, I am an experienced knitter, and I have a lot of skills when it comes to knitting. I've learned lots of things, and I still challenge myself as I'm knitting. But I like knitting easier things as well. I challenge myself by creating YouTube videos, by being creative with new patterns, by running a business. So there are lots of ways you can be creative and challenge yourself, not just by learning to knit socks in the best sock knitted way and doing everything that knitters do. One of the best ways to knit is to become experienced in one niche. And I love that kind of thing. There are YouTube channels, there are Instagram channels, there are shops out there that only sell one kind of knit. They only knit with one kind of yarn, or they only create one kind of knit, one item. I'm a sock knitter, full stop. I knit Farrow mittens, full stop. And so many ways. It can be absolutely brilliant to really dive into that niche and know it so well. That's why I say, if you want someone to create a pattern that's for a 3-month-old, but for a 5-year-old, then find someone who absolutely adores spreadsheets. Or go and read the book and be that person who learns about that kind of thing. I love running a business, always had that entrepreneurial streak about me. And knitting It's something I've done since I was a tiny. So it really is a passion of mine, but I only learn about knitting in certain ways, and I love teaching it too. So learning about how I teach better and learning about running a business better, that's my niche. You do not have to learn every single thing about knitting just because you're a knitter. Absolutely not. Kaz is a beginner knitter. I learned from YouTube. Cool. That's it. And I love the fact that people can go absolutely crazy for beginner knitting items. You can be the best beginner knitter in the world. You can be the best at knitting every row in the world. I've seen garter stitch blankets up for sale by people who've only just started knitting, and they're not that good. You know, rough edges and crazy things happening when you're changing colour and all that sort of stuff. But people have been knitting for 6, 12, 3 months. Guess what? They're still knitting the beginner items and they are absolutely amazing at it now. They may have been knitting for 5, 10 years and they're still knitting beginner items and they are so professional, so brilliant at it that really they could be on the catwalk. So you only have to learn the skills that you want to learn. There you go. That is a big passion of mine. Because I've just done a big, not a rant, but a big, yeah, I could talk about this kind of thing for hours. But yeah, choose what you love to knit and knit it. Right, I will end the stream now. Come across people who don't knit anything in garter stitch because it's unskilled. They are knitting snobs. Yes, totally. Yes, yes, yes. Beginner knitters learning from YouTube, that is a great way to knit, yes. And Yarn Princess also learned from Hannah. That's why I consider myself an experienced knitter. Yes. But it's learning the details in the beginner stuff. That can be so important. So, so important. Okay. If you want to learn more about the YArn Declutter, you want to get the details on Saturday for the next task, then it's knitwithhannah.co.uk/declutter. If you go over to the academy, academy.knitwithhannah.co.uk, then you'll see the YArn Declutter there, and you will see all of the back tasks from the first week all the way through to the last, through to this week, and all of the videos will be up there. This one will be up there probably tomorrow. It takes a while for YouTube to process it, then I can download it and stick it up there. But you'll see it without adverts in. Okay, I will see you again soon. Thanks so much for joining me today. Have a great week. Happy knitting!